95% interest-only loans for investment properties.
Yeah,
do they exist?
They do exist. Remember those days?
Welcome back, everybody, and thanks again for registering on learning how to become a rent investor as your first foray onto the property market. Now, in the first video that I recorded, I introduced Rene as a rent investor, and she shared some of her tips with you. And in this second video, what we're going to be doing is going through the PIA software and showing you how to structure a hypothetical acquisition so it costs you $50 a week, more or less, depending on how much you earn. And in addition, we're going to bring back Rene. You may remember Rene from last time, and she's going to be sharing 3 more pearls of wisdom or tips to help you get started on your property journey. So without further ado, let's get into the software. Okay, so welcome to the PIA software, guys. This is the professional investment analysis software that I use with all of my clients. Now, what we're going to be doing over the next couple of minutes is we're going to go down this column and we're going to input all the data like property value and purchase costs. And what it's going to do is going to show you how much it's going to cost you to hold a hypothetical property. So now, I don't know your personal situation. Obviously, when you come in, I'll personalize this, but I'll create a generic scenario so you get an understanding of what I'm talking about. So I'll use a purchase price of $400,000. There are some wonderful investment opportunities in Australia, believe it or not, for around $400,000. And when you come in to see me, I'll show you those opportunities that I'm really excited about. So let's move forward. So imagine you bought something for $400,000 and we need to put in some stamp duty and conveyancing costs. Now, remember, when you buy as an investment, you're not going to be able to claim the stamp duty because you're buying as an investor. To get all the stamp duties around the country at the moment, you're going to need to live in it. All right, so we factor in $14,000. Now, let's imagine that you have done a wonderful job and you've contributed $40,000 in savings. All right, now if you don't have the $40,000 in savings, we can still borrow everything by using mum and dad's property, but that's a different scenario, but I'll just keep it simple by putting in some cash of $40,000. So here you are, you've gone to the bank and you said, I want to borrow $379,000, of which roughly just over $20,000 will create some equity in your property, the rest of the money going towards paying the costs. Now, I don't know what the future will hold in terms of capital growth, but let's leave it at 5%. Let's reduce inflation to 2%. So that's you putting up the rent every year to your tenants by 2% per annum. And let's assume that you can get $400 a week in rent. There are plenty of markets at the moment that are giving you dollar for dollar. So if you buy for $400, you should be able to get $400. Okay, now let's get into the 2 biggest expenses. Now the first one is interest. Now I'm going to inflate the interest to 5%. You should be getting less interest rates less than that, but I'll leave it at 5%. Rental expenses. Now I'm going to go through this quickly, but I'll assume that you're prepared to pay 8% to an agent to manage your property. Every time they find a tenant, they will collect the first week in rent. Rates, insurance, a bit of maintenance and some body corporate. I'm going to assume that you're buying into a unit or a townhouse where everyone puts money into a pot to maintain the building. So notice I put in $4,000 a year, which is $1,000 a quarter, which is more than what you need. Okay, so I've estimated roughly just under $10,000 a year in costs to maintain your property. All right, now this is where it gets really interesting, and I need you to pay attention. Now, if you buy a brand new property, one of the benefits of buying a brand new property is under current tax legislation, roughly half of the purchase price, which is $200,000, can be used to depreciate the actual outside of the building. That's right, the bricks and mortar on the building itself on the outside. And what happens is your accountant can claim 2.5% of that $200,000 every year for the next 40 years. So what it means, guys, is that you're now picking up $5,000 a year in depreciation on the outside of the building. Now, whether you replace the outside of the building or not is up to you, but 99.99% of my clients never replace the building. They just take the money and use that for their own advantage. Now, the reason why the government allows you to depreciate the outside of the building is 2 reasons. One, every time you buy a brand new property, it helps the economy. There's tradies working, builders, electricians, and all that sort of stuff, and it has a knock-on effect through the economy. And the second reason is every time that a brand new property is constructed, it helps with the housing supply. That is, there's more properties to be rent, and then there's less pressure on rentals. So I hope that gives you a bit of background. Now, depreciation of fittings. In this case, the system's only picked up $24,000 worth of depreciation, like as if it's an old property. So I'm going to be very conservative. If you have bought a brand new $400,000 unit, this figure here is more like $40,000. So what happens is your accountant is able to depreciate the internal fixtures and fittings, like the carpets and the curtains, over a 5-year period. At the end of the 5-year period, you can no longer claim anymore because all of these internal fixtures and fittings have been technically worn out. So you are more likely to replace the carpets than the outside of the building. So this is probably very, very useful money to have back in your pocket. So depreciation is a very important part of the whole scheme, guys. Particularly if you can buy a brand new property where there's you get significant depreciation per annum. You can see here forever, $5,000 for 40 years, or internal fixtures and fittings where it gets depreciated over a 5-year period. And then finally, loan costs. I'm just going to assume that you're going to pay a little bit of lender's mortgage insurance if mum and dad aren't offering their houses as extra collateral, okay? So if I don't know what your income is going to be like, guys, but if you're on $80,000 a year, can you see here that this $41 per week is what's going to cost you? Now, when you come in to see me, I'm going to personalize this and change it around. So I don't know what your income is, but I'll just drop it to $60,000 and you can see that it's now $37 a week it's costing you. If you're on, say, a significantly more amount of money, say $100,000 a year, you can see here that again, it's still only costing you $27 a week. All right, so guys, this exercise is really, in summary, to show you that you can buy a $400,000 property, and even if you don't have any cash and mum and dad can help you, can you see how that for an investment of $50 a week, you're going to be able to buy a property that if you do get 5% capital growth, in 10 years' time, it's going to be worth significantly more, and the equity you're going to have is substantial. You're going to have $231,000. Now, that $231,000 means that you've now got the potential to sell that property and buy back in that suburb that you're currently renting, or you keep building a property portfolio. So let's get 2 investment properties. And can you see how in 10 years' time, you've got just under $500,000 to put a significant deposit down in that suburb. Now, when you come in and see me, I'm going to give you one tip on how to claim your tax benefits back per pay packet. That's right, get your tax benefits back per pay packet. There's a very, very cool piece of tax legislation that allows you to claim your tax benefit back per pay packet rather than the end of the financial year. All right, guys, thanks for that. So thank you for persevering through that quite technical piece of software. As you can see, you really can buy a property for, roughly $50 a week. And if you're wondering why more people don't do it, it's only because they've probably never been shown that before. Based on my 15 years experience in helping first homeowners like you, most people just don't sit down and spend the time to go through it just like you are now. Now, when you come in person, I'm going to personalize this for you. So on your marginal rate of tax, and you may have a deposit and all those sorts of things. So I'll adjust it for you. But the main thing is that you've got an understanding now that rent is not dead money. Rent can give you the lifestyle that you're looking for, so long as you go off and buy your own property as an investment as your first foray into it. So as you can see, it's very exciting because you're now seeing Australia as a series of property markets, and you can decide to live in the suburb that you really want to live in and invest in a location that you think has got better growth prospects. Which leads me to the point, what makes us different from other mortgage brokers is that we help you understand where to buy. I'm very humbled to be on Sky News talking about where to be investing. And so it'll be my great pleasure to show you which property markets to be investing in. I'm genuinely excited by the prospects of 3 markets in Australia at the moment, and one of them is actually positively gearing, meaning it actually puts money in your pocket. So it really is excited, and I encourage you to find people that can help you on your journey, who know what they're talking about, like us, and help you on your journey. All right, so I promised to bring Rene back into the picture. Rene, as you know, is a very articulate woman, and she has a wonderful outlook on life, and she wants to share with you 3 more tips on how to get ahead as a rent investor. So without further ado, let's bring Rene back in.
One piece of advice I would say is, if you want to get your foot into the market, to do some research, make sure it is something that you want to do, and don't allow other people who are doing the same thing to deter you, because their experiences may have been different to yours. So they may have had a negative experience and that might put you off. But if it's something that you want to do, you should definitely go for it. The second piece of advice would be, everyone has an opinion. So just be careful who you listen to, because family have your best interest at heart, but may not necessarily have the finger on the pulse. So you need to go with someone who is objective to you, not subjective. So has your interests of purchasing a property at heart and has their finger on the pulse and is current in today's market. Actually, two things were really surprising and a good surprise. The first was that the banks allow you to have an offset account. So that's a fantastic thing to have, as you can offset your interest by having savings in an account sitting next to your mortgage. Rather than that money going to the mortgage, it can actually sit there and offset your interest, but it's also there for you to access if you have emergencies. I thought that was really great. The second thing is that there are lots of ways to get into the property market. You don't just need a 20% deposit. You know, if your family or someone who's close to you is in a financial position where they can put something up as collateral, they can go guarantor, which was my case. My family gifted me my deposit by putting our family home as collateral, and I didn't need to have a deposit. So I was able to get my foot in the door 2 years earlier than what or 2, 3, maybe 4 years earlier than what I thought, because I had that security blanket.
So, Rene, you've been a homeowner now for about a year now. Are there any expenses that you didn't factor in?
Absolutely not. I pride myself on the fact that I do my own research, and I didn't rush into this. I sought advice, and when I made my decision to go with Hunterwood Solutions, I was given the full service treatment. So I was connected with a financial planner, I was connected with an accountant, I was connected with a mortgage broker, and research property houses that made sure I didn't miss out on any opportunities or get stuck in any loopholes. Each one of those categories and the people working in them made sure that I had success in purchasing a property, and also I wasn't caught out with fees or unexpected payments that the common person may not know about. I have a background in strata, so I already knew the strata fees that I'd be up for, and that was a good thing. So if you're not too sure about strata, maybe do some research about that. But this company really helped fill in the gaps and made sure that I didn't get stuck.
Thank you very much to Rene for sharing those wonderful tips around how to become a rent investor. I'm sure you would agree that they were wonderful tips that would help you on your journey to becoming a first homeowner. So that concludes the Rentvesting series. As you can see, as mortgage brokers, we are here to help you. We're very experienced, so you're in very safe hands. And the main thing is that we're going to empower you with knowledge, whether it's to buy your own home to live in or whether it's to become a rent investor. So our contact details are coming up, and I look forward to your call. Bye for now.